Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Supplemental Programmatic Environmental Assessment Public Listening Session. As many of you are aware, Aberdeen Proving Ground is among the installations being considered for potential force reductions based on congressional budget agreements. The SPIA will be used to support and inform our leadership and stakeholders on potential environmental and socioeconomic effects resulting from additional end strength reductions. This evening, we have representatives from the Department of the Army G357 who will present information, after which the floor will be open for your comments. Before we begin, I'll cover a few ground rules. If you haven't already done so, please take this opportunity to silence all electronic devices. After the presentation, some of our distinguished visitors will have the first opportunity to comment. Next, the floor will be open for general comments. When you entered the auditorium, you should have been asked if you were planning to make a comment during the session. If so, you should have been given a number. So that we may try to facilitate your comments in an orderly fashion, you will be asked to approach the microphones on either side of the auditorium in groups based on the number you were given upon entry. If you didn't receive a number and still wish to comment, you will still have an opportunity. In the interest of time, and so everyone who wishes to comment will have an opportunity, comments will be limited to 1 minute. You will be given a 10-second warning when your time is almost up. Please, before you begin your comments, state your name and organization, or if you're just a concerned citizen. Finally, if you have any written remarks and wish to submit them, please leave them at one of the tables on your way out this evening. Let's get started with the introduction of some of our distinguished visitors. The Senior Commander of Aberdeen Proving Ground and Commanding General, U.S. Army Communications Electronics Command, Major General Bruce Crawford. Mr. Gary Martin, Deputy to the Commanding General, U.S. Army Communications Electronics Command. Major General Peter Utley, U.S. Army Test and Evaluation Command. Colonel Gregory McClinton, Commander, U.S. Army Garrison, Aberdeen Proving Ground. Mr. Glenn Waite, Deputy to the Commander, U.S. Army Garrison, Aberdeen Proving Ground. Command Sergeant Major Jeffrey Adams, Garrison Command Sergeant Major, Aberdeen Proving Ground. Mr. Juji Hewitt, Executive Deputy to the Commander, U.S. Army Research Development and Engineering Command. Representing Governor Larry Hogan, the 29th Adjutant General of Maryland, Major General Linda L. Singh. With us also some congressional representation. Bart Kennedy representing Senator Barbara Mikulski. Heather Campbell representing Senator Ben Cardin. Jennifer Riggs Dribbin and Michael Baker representing Congressman Dutch Ruppersberger. Kevin Rygroot, Chief of Staff for Congressman Andy Harris and Mary O'Keefe. From our state delegation, Delegate Teresa Riley, Delegate Kathy Zlega. Representing Brigadier General Retired Mike Hayes, Director, Maryland Department of Business and Economic Development, Office of Military Affairs, Deputy Director Lisa Swoboda. From Harford County Executive Barry Glassman. Karen Holt, Director, Harford County Economic Development. Harford County President Richard Slutsky. Mayor of Aberdeen Mike Bennett. Mayor of Havre de Grace Wayne Doherty. From our educational community, Dr. Dennis Galladay, President Harford Community College. Diane Lane, Vice President Cecil College. Barbara Canavan, Superintendent Harford County Public Schools. And some former APG leadership. Mike Parker, former Director of Edgewood Chemical Biological Center, RDECOM, currently a business strategist with Leidos. Brian Simmons, former Technical Director, Deputy to the Commander, U.S. Army Test and Evaluation Command, currently an Army Alliance Board member. Ed Thomas, formerly Deputy to the CG, U.S. Army Communications Electronics Command, currently Vice President, CACI International, and Army Alliance Board member. Wyatt Colclasher, Colonel, U.S. Army retired, Chemical Officer, formerly Director at ECBC. Dean Ertwine, Brigadier General retired, U.S. Army, currently Director, Maryland Business Roundtable for Education, and Army Alliance Board member. Other key community leaders: Pam Clark, President, Harford County Chamber of Commerce; Eric McLaughlin, representing the Harford County Chamber of Commerce and former Economic Development Advisory Board Chair. And before we get started, I'd like to thank Steve Overbay from the Chesapeake Science and Security Corridor, and Jill McClune, President of the Army Alliance, along with Harford County government in coordinating this event. Please welcome at this time Mr. Gary Martin, Deputy to the Commanding General, U.S. Army Communications Electronics Command.
Good evening. It's great to see everybody here this evening. General Crawford will be here momentarily. He's somewhere in that mess of traffic outside. So really today is really about sharing of information and answering questions that folks may have. It's important to note that this is a part of educating the process for which the SPEA actually is part of. The team that is here today from Headquarters DA, Colonel Kunzelman, will be giving an overview of how the process works, where we are in the process, and how it will play out. Lieutenant Colonel Castro is here with him as well. I would simply advise they are not the guys in the Pentagon who are deciding what the cuts ought to be, right? So they're here to share some information today, so please, they're the messenger. But with that, this is really about educating you all in terms of how the process goes. There have been a number of things that have been posted in the local media, on web pages and a variety of other things. And so what you'll hear today should complement what you have heard. But again, it's really about answering your questions and describing how the process will go. So with that, I'm really going to get the process started. I'll turn it over to Colonel Kunzelman. He'll give you an update on the process itself, where we are, and how things will play out over the next couple of months.
Before Colonel Kunzelman comes up, we have some opening remarks from County Executive Barry Glassman, Harford County Executive.
Good evening. It's good to see everyone out this evening. Welcome to Harford County, Maryland, proud home of Aberdeen Proving Ground, where this evening we stand united in support of Aberdeen Proving Ground. Our post is approaching 100-year anniversary, established in 1917. It has been part of our community for generations of Harford County and part of our community for many missions that have shaped our nation's defense and continue to support the modern Army through cyber and homeland security. The uniqueness of our mission makes Aberdeen Proving Ground essential to the Department of Defense and, most importantly, their support of our nation's warfighters. APG is truly part of the fabric of our community, embedded in our history and the economic driver of our future. Any proposed cuts to Aberdeen Proving Ground personnel would have a lasting and profound impact on our region. As Harford County's leading employer, more than 23,000 individuals enter the gates each day to fill a variety of high-skilled and technical positions. Nearly 70% of APG employees choose to call Harford County home, entrusting their education of their children to our first-class schools, taking advantage of our open spaces, and supporting our local business community. My own mother, Louise, worked her entire life on Aberdeen Proving Ground and retired as the property book officer. And currently, my sister follows that family tradition of being part of the civilian workforce at Aberdeen Proving Ground. I think there are many of you who share that same generational service and connections to our post. I would ask you to stand with me if you have worked or know someone currently employed at Aberdeen Proving Ground or have a family connection to the post. Don't be bashful. Thank you for standing with Harford County as we unite not only to protect our post, but support its growth as part of our overall economic plan and defense for our nation. Thank you again for coming out this evening and showing your support for Aberdeen Proving Ground and Harford County. God bless you and have a safe trip back.
Thank you, Mr. Glassman. And now, Colonel Kunzelman from the Department of the Army, G357.
Well, distinguished guests, community leaders, soldiers, families, and citizens of the Aberdeen Proving Ground community, family, good evening. My name is Colonel Carl Kunzelman. Thank you for coming out on such a frightful evening. Clearly that shows your dedication to what's happening here and what's going on with our great Army. I have just a couple slides that I'm going to talk to you about this evening, sort of laying out what the Army is doing, why it's doing, and if we go to the next slide, of course, the most important is to hear what you have to say and to take those comments, answer any questions that you may have, and bring them back to the senior leaders of the Department of the Army. Now, I want to state up front that no decisions have been made, so we don't know what's going to happen here at Aberdeen Proving Ground no more than we do at any of the other 29 installations that we're visiting throughout the United States. Now, the senior leaders, I can assure you, take this very seriously. This is not something that happens very lightly, and as the process moves forward, we will have an iterative process as we go and talk to them and find out what it is that they're looking for to make these critical decisions. Now, we anticipate a decision sometime in late spring or early summer, and I say that because if we use our most recent history as a guide in 2013, that's when the Chief of Staff of the Army announced the last reduction that we had. Now, as we go to this next slide, this is really what the Army, next slide, please. Just a simple agenda. And the next slide, please. What the Army announced in 2013 was going from 570,000 soldiers down to 490,000 soldiers. Now, that was a 14% decrease of our wartime high. Now, within those numbers, from 570 down to 490, it could have been a lot more complicated than it sounds, and I'll direct you to that third bullet there. You'll notice that we have something called TESI. We had 22,000 spaces in temporary end strength increase. That's our TESI. Then we had another 10,000 spaces in our wartime allowance, which is really just a TESI by another name. Now, those 32,000 spaces allowed all the men and women in here serving who, when they deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan, allowed their units to go at 103, 104, 105%. So when a soldier twisted their ankle or had to go on emergency leave, the unit's overall strength was not decremented as they deployed out the door. So we no longer have that luxury. Those 32,000 spaces are going away. Then you'll notice that we also had another 11.3 thousand spaces that we took down from Europe. Then we have something that we call the TTHS. That's our trainees, transies, holdies, and students. Now that holds at about 13% of our total force. So as we went from 570 down to 490, that decreased by 7.3 thousand spaces as well. So before we touched a single unit in the United States, we had already taken down 50,000 soldiers. So then we just had to find, 30,000 more to get to that 490 position. So the BCT reorganization, that's where we went from 45 BCTs down to 32 BCTs in the United States Army, but they went from 2 maneuver battalions to 3 maneuver battalions. So on those BCT installations, a lot of those soldiers never even left the installation. So I'll just talk about Fort Bragg for a minute. They had 4 BCTs. One of the BCTs inactivated 3,500 soldiers, but about 2,400 of them never left the installation because they just moved over into the remaining BCTs to build that 3rd Maneuver Battalion. As we move forward and we have to go below 490,000, we don't have that luxury anymore. Anything that we do from here on out are units that are in existence right now, manned by men and women, soldiers in uniform. And that's sort of what the senior leaders are grappling with and what the force is going to look like to go from 490 to 450 or 420. Now, when we originally did the announcement on June 25th of 2013, saying we were going from 570 down to 490, that was supposed to have been over fiscal years 14, 15, 16, and 17. But the senior leaders decided to accelerate, and they brought all of that to the left. So all of that is going to be done by the end of this fiscal year. And the reason being is that they wanted to be at 490,000 soldiers, knowing that we were probably going to have to jump off and go below that. Now, both the Secretary and the Chief of Staff of the Army have been very clear in their testimony up on Capitol Hill and in their public comments that they believe 490 is about right for the active force. So I'll assure you that in the Pentagon, we're not doing high fives that we have to go below 490 to 450 or heaven forbid 420. But these are the numbers that we're dealing with right now, and this sort of sets the stage as we move forward. Now, we called it the BCT reorganization, but it was really more than that. There were 740 units that were impacted in the decision that we announced in June of 2013. So that's 50.9% of our force. So those of you that were serving in units, if you didn't see a change within your unit, I'm sure you looked to your left or your right and you saw changes happening all around you. So that's our position as we move into the next slide and we talk about what the Army is doing and why. So currently, the Army's bill to the budget is going to be about $95 billion over the next 10 years. And so that is going to drive the end strength down as we move forward. The only other place to get that money, of course, would be from equipping, modernization, training, readiness. So as the force goes down, we will stay away from that hollow force that's mentioned up there in the second bullet, which those of you who remember back in the 70s, there was a lot of conversation around that. And that's what concerns the senior leaders terribly, that we're going to have a force that is unready when something happens and they deploy. They're not trained and equipped at the way that they want them to be to go into combat. So as we move forward, you can see the numbers up here. If we go from 490 down to 450, that's a 21% decrease of where we were at 570. If we have to go down to 420, that's a 26% decrease from our wartime high of 570,000. And for those of you who have been reading in the newspapers or keeping up on TV, that's the lowest force that we've had since prior to World War II when we were at 269,000 in 1940. So as a result of that, we had to do a supplemental to the programmatic environmental assessment that we did in 2013, because the numbers that we assessed going forward are roughly double of what they were going down to 490. So as we go into the next slide, we'll just talk very briefly about the SPEA. So Aberdeen Proving Ground was analyzed for 4,300 soldiers and civilians. Now, that's not saying that Aberdeen is going to lose that amount. That's just what we used for the analysis. And that was the same for all of the other 29 installations as well. Some were more, some were less. But any installation that had more than 1,000 soldiers that could possibly lose those were included in the analysis. So some of the larger installations were analyzed for up to 16,000 soldier loss. And again, it was just to maximize it, so when we bring these options up to the Secretary of the Army and the Chief of Staff of the Army, they have as much information as they need to make these critical decisions. The reductions are something that will be worked out through the TAA process. Now, the 4,300 that were analyzed here at Aberdeen Proving Ground were 1,000 soldiers and 3,272 civilians. And of course, once again, we don't know if those are the numbers that are going to be or what's going to happen as we move forward. That's what part of the process is going to happen. So I know some, I was talking to somebody earlier, they saw that number and they thought that's what Aberdeen is going to lose. I don't know what Aberdeen is going to lose, as I don't anywhere else until the senior leaders make their decisions. So as we go into the next slide, how do we make these decisions and the process that it happens? So of course, the strategic national guidance is what drives all of this. So the DPG, the QDR, all of that is what decides what sort of Army that we're going to have. And you can see up in the top left where we are. We're here for the listening session. That's so we can gather all the information that you give us, take it back and package it for the Secretary of the Army and the Chief of Staff of the Army when they make these decisions later on in the late spring or the early summer. Eventually, it will come all the way out and we'll have an approval, and there will probably be a formal announcement in the Pentagon briefing room again. And the final slide that I have up here is just talking just a little bit about how we actually make this decision. Now, the first one up there is called the military value analysis. That does not impact Aberdeen Proving Ground. That is only for the BCT installations. And the reason that is it's hard to compare APG to Fort Hood to Fort Leonard Wood to Fort Bragg. It just does not work. But all of the other criteria are things that the senior leaders are going to judge when they make decisions on how the force is going to be shaped as we move forward. So with that, The next slide is the last one. I just want to say thank you again for coming out here tonight. I look forward to your comments and your questions. Every time I stand up in front of a group of people, I like to say thank you. Thank you for your service. Thanks for all you do for our soldiers, our men and women serving in uniform of all branches. Thanks for what you do for your community. I salute you, and I look forward to talking to you later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Kunzelman. Next, we'll have Eric McLaughlin, representing the Hartford County Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to address the leadership and to provide the input that's going to be taken back to senior leadership on whether and to what extent APG should be impacted by this SPIA. My name is Eric McLaughlin, and I have chaired the Economic Development Advisory Board for Hartford County for a good while and have enjoyed watching the county's relationship with Aberdeen Proving Ground. The Economic Development Advisory Board exists in Hartford County by code, and its role is to take on matters of economic importance in Hartford County, and it specifically says in the code to maintain a permanent liaison with Aberdeen Proving Ground because matters affecting APG have a direct impact on our community. So when the discussion of this SPIA began, we started to pay attention and we started to track it, knowing that in it discussed what that potential impact could be. And EDAB came alongside the Army Alliance and the CSSC to help with that advocacy effort. In the SPIA, there are ratings that describe the impacts that proposed action and inaction may have on our community. And the quote that caught my eye is this, quote, "Significant socioeconomic impacts are anticipated as a result of implementing the force reductions." Now, the SPIA also indicates that if there's no action taken, the result will be, quote unquote, beneficial. But then it says with the force reductions, the impact will be, quote unquote, significant. Now, what I'd like to do is help put into perspective what socioeconomic contributions APG currently lends to Hartford County and to this region, and what significance, where that significance comes from, and why I believe that leaving our military in place is beneficial, just as the SPIA indicates. Now, that's difficult to do when you consider that this potential 4,300 employees are also people in our communities. They work in our communities, they volunteer in our communities, they go to church in our communities. The social impact is real, it's just difficult to quantify. I can certainly attest to a rich, supportive social and business infrastructure that embraces our military and all that APG does in our community. But here's what we can capture. Over the course of the past 8 or 9 years, the momentum at Aberdeen Proving Ground has elevated and maintained Hartford County's economy. And we can quantify how, if that momentum is interrupted, we could easily see a significant negative socioeconomic impact to Hartford County and to our region. First slide, please. Let's put Aberdeen Proving Ground and Maryland into perspective for a moment. APG is the 3rd largest economic engine in the state when ranked by the number of employees. It's just before the entire university system of Maryland. It's tied with Johns Hopkins as an employer. In other words, this community has the state's 3rd largest economic engine in its backyard, and that's worth advocating for. It's worth protecting. And it's important to understand how we got there, because we haven't always been in that position. If you watch total Hartford County employment over 5 years, it's increased significantly. It's holding in the 87,000 range. And keep in mind that this was the same employment increase time period. That time period was the same time period that BRAC was being implemented. The differential in this 5-year period, that 5-year period, is just about 8,000 positions. And we're talking about the potential impact to 4,300 positions. So pause and imagine just for a moment if that progress and momentum that I've talked about and increasing were reduced by more than half, which is the worst case scenario that the SPIA is discussing. Of course, we measure progress not just by the number of jobs, we also measure it by how those jobs financially benefit the county as a whole. And I can tell you that over the past 8 years, the income tax on the increased employment base has increased an additional $45 million more in income tax revenue to the county, which plows back into the services that the state and Barry Glassman's county administration can provide to the citizens who live and work here. Then consider for a moment how those employment figures benefit individual households. Over that same 8-year period, the median household income in the United States increased by 10%. The median household income in Maryland increased by 18%. But in Harford County, it increased by 23%, more than double the national median to roughly $80,000. And that's not accidental, it's not incidental. It directly correlates with military activity and the momentum at APG. So for us, it's about momentum and movement. It's been a marathon and not a sprint. If you were to watch that marathon for how federal contracting dollars have been spent, its impact on Harford County specifically, you will see that coming into 2013, Harford County had a share that had more than doubled what it had previously. And even when the cuts began in 2013, it maintained a very robust momentum. So you have federal dollars being awarded locally of over $250 million to local companies, and you have employment at a record high, and you have median household income at more than the national mean. And so what do you do next? Well, I asked my wife, and she said, you go shopping. And look, there will be some impact on our retail. Retail ramped up, and it would certainly be impacted if employment ramped down. But what you really do under those circumstances as a region and as a county is you attract even more businesses to do the same thing. When defense contractors have confidence in Aberdeen Proving Ground, they too invest in locating here. When we began the process, there were 28 contracting companies. There are now 108. And having 108 to support the momentum at APG that weren't here before is a strong story to tell, and that will continue. Let's do the next slide, please. The economic growth and this forward momentum are not something that the business community takes credit for. That's why that first bullet gives credit where the credit is due. Our overall economic growth is tied to APG's success. We have a keen appreciation for it, and we rely on it, and we've developed a unique business infrastructure to support it. And that's been very deliberate. Our University Research Park entity is Aberdeen Proving Ground's University Research Park entity. Our Additive Manufacturing Authority is APG's Additive Manufacturing Authority. Our Higher Education Authority is APG's Higher Education Authority. Our Chamber's Military Affairs Committee is for APG. Our Public Schools Outreach is APG's. Our decision of our administration to relocate its Office of Economic Development and all of the ancillary things that are taking place around that hub in Route 40, 2 miles away from Aberdeen Proving Ground, is for the purposes of advancing and supporting APG and its success. So hopefully, our hope is that that degree of support will encourage senior leadership to want to maintain and protect this asset that we've built this infrastructure around. It's a great story to tell. It's a great story to tell. And in addition to these economic aspects, you can see that we've actually had, as a county, physical infrastructure improvements as well that support that. So it's not just theory. We have significant highway improvements that have taken place, some that are planned. All of those intended to serve the ability to access Aberdeen Proving Ground so that the last 5 miles of someone's trip to Aberdeen Proving Ground has some commonality to it regardless of the point of origin. Let's do the next slide, please. We have a new APG STEM Outreach Center now. We had professionals and families locally and from New Jersey and Virginia who realized that if they invested in a future workforce that could support the continued specializations in education that our community needs in order to support Aberdeen Proving Ground, if an investment could be made to provide STEM experiences, everyone would benefit. So the Proving Ground has repurposed and dedicated an existing facility. Our public school system has provided teaching expertise so that students from all over the Eastern Seaboard can come to Aberdeen Proving Ground and have an opportunity to experience robotics, 3D printing, engineering, and other STEM opportunities. We positioned ourselves similarly in higher education. In order to address the absence of a four-year institution here in the county, the absence of that four-year institutional presence, we co-located Towson University. Hartford Community College was able to accomplish that. So we have a 4-year institution on the campus of Harford Community College so that now students can earn a bachelor's degree in the same zip code where they began their college experience and hopefully remain employed here with the skills that would be needed for Aberdeen Proving Ground support. So in closing, I'd like to make clear that we know that there would be socioeconomic impacts in any jurisdiction where the Army chooses to make cuts. That's just the nature of making cuts. However, these post-BRAC successes, the momentum that we've created in our economy, and this community's tremendous will to assure that those things continue and that the partnership continues are not just distinctions, they're differentiators for Harford County and for Aberdeen Proving Ground. It's a fiscally responsible thing to do for Aberdeen Proving Ground and for our region to allow that momentum to continue, to create an environment for additional successes in our region and in our county, and that's the message that we would ask that you take back to senior leadership. Thank you very much.
As we raise the screen and open the curtain, next to speak on behalf of Governor Larry Hogan, please welcome the 29th Adjutant General of Maryland, Major General Linda L. Singh.
Good evening, General Crawford, Mr. Glassman, Mr. McLaughlin, distinguished representatives, and our local leadership. I do thank you all for showing up for what I consider an organization and a facility that is actually near and dear to my heart, because what we don't say a lot of times about our general officers is that when I got my officer basic course, it was actually here at Aberdeen Proving Ground. So I came from the Ordnance School and spent quite a bit of time here throughout my time. So as they said, I'm Major General Linda Singh, the Adjutant General, Maryland. I command the Maryland Military Department, the Maryland Army National Guard, the Maryland Air National Guard, the Maryland Emergency Management Agency, as well as the Maryland Defense Force. And I bring you the warmest regards from Governor Larry Hogan and Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford. This evening, I've been asked to be here for my boss and actually to listen in on your questions and concerns. And believe it or not, the last few days, I was just down at the Pentagon at the Armed Forces Reserve Policy Committee, and we talked just about this subject and what's going on across the Army in terms of really the Army as a whole, so that includes the National Guard in terms of our cuts and how that is actually going to play out. So as many of you realize, the Maryland National Guard has a significant presence here in Harford County. There are approximately 870 members of the Maryland Military Department who are based in Harford County. Our department has a fiscal impact in Harford County in excess of $34 million. The Maryland Guard has a great relationship with APG as one of its largest tenants, predominantly located at Edgewood area, Aberdeen Proving Ground. And they include the Hodges Armory, the Army Aviation Support Facility at the airfield there, a large training area at Lauderich Creek, which I've trained at myself a number of times. And then that facility is actually available to all the units that they decide that they want to use that. So it's not just us that use that particular facility. Some of the major units and facilities you may be familiar with is the 29th Combat Aviation Brigade, which provides military aviation support, the 70th Regiment Training, which oversees major training efforts such as our Officer Candidate School, our Warrant Officer Candidate School, and our Non-Commissioned Officer Academy, and several courses which qualify soldiers in several military occupational specialties. And thanks to APG, we were able to actually move our schoolhouse here. It actually came from Camp Frederick out in Reisterstown, Maryland. And we were in less than optimal facilities there. So thanks to Aberdeen Proving Ground, we were able to move here and actually upgrade our facilities so that we are on par with really all the other training organizations that are out there. So thank you for that. We appreciate that. And we have it's a great place, so thank you. We also operate the Free State Challenge Academy at Edgewood, which is a program to intervene and reclaim the lives of at-risk high school dropouts from age 16 to 18 in a highly disciplined, quasi-military academy setting. This program gives these students an opportunity to study for, take, and pass the GED test. It gives determined young people a second chance at turning their lives around. This program is funded at 75% federal funding and 25% state funding. Maryland was one of the first 10 states to establish this program, and since 1993, we've actually graduated 4,000 young people. APG is important to the state as well, and we've already heard it's the third largest employer. But what I also think is important is APG is one of the most diversified military installations in the U.S. As APG approaches its 100th-year anniversary, we have seen the investment by the federal, state, and local government in the road infrastructure, the workforce, and a commitment to education where we're building new schools and renovating 50-year-old schools. We have seen Aberdeen Proving Ground become a successful research, development, testing, and evaluation center of excellence and remain a strong economic engine for the Mid-Atlantic region. Northeastern Maryland and the region is strong and a growing epicenter which supports the diverse missions at APG. So on behalf of the Hogan-Rutherford administration, I would like to thank you all for the support to all the members of the military and our civilian workforce. Thank you.
We're going to prepare to take comments from all of you now. If on your way in you received tickets with the numbers 1 through 20, please begin to line up on either side, preferably odd on the right, even on the left, so we even the comments out to each side. Please remember to state your name, your organizational affiliation, and whether or not you're just a concerned citizen.
So I had the opportunity to spend the day today with our Chief of Staff of the Army, talking about the future of this great Army. And not just having a discussion about planes, trains, and automobiles. I mean, that's good stuff to be talking about. But what would make you proud had you been sitting where I was sitting with about 15 of my peers as a part of Army Material Command, what would have made you proudest is to hear your senior leadership, the 38th Chief of Staff of the Army, to hear the passion with which he talked about its military communities, to hear the passion with which he talked about our veterans. He talked about the importance of our military communities, our military installations to our communities. And so the thing that I'll tell you, as I get the opportunity, obviously, to represent both the military installation that myself and great Americans like Major General Pete Utley, who's also here with us tonight, get the opportunity, honored and privileged to do every day. But I will tell you, I get the opportunity every day to represent this great community. And I can tell you of all the things that I've done in the 28 years that I've been in service, the thing that I'm most proud of is that particular job. That's the thing that keeps me awake at night. It's also the thing that keeps me going every day. And so take seriously, and I know you all do, but as you go about, talking to people about what happened tonight and about what your feelings are, where is this really going? Be proud of your leadership that's starting at the Secretary of the Army, working its way down. Because I can tell you, and you all, many of you know this, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, we wouldn't have a process like this. These decisions would have been made, and we would have been reading about them afterwards. So good on our Army. all right, for at least making sure that the great citizens of these United States and the many communities that are affected by these discussions get a vote. For making sure that you and your neighbors get a vote. And ultimately for making sure that not only do you get an opportunity to vote, but that your vote counts in the end. And so those are the opening remarks from me, the things that I wanted to say, and I look forward to the discussion that's going to occur throughout the night tonight. And I've looked through a lot of the charts, I've looked through a lot of the issues. We've been studying this. As you all know, this didn't just happen in the last couple of days. So up front, I want to make sure that I think our local, our state, our national leadership who are represented here today, if not here in person, that they're represented for caring and for staying engaged with us. I see this, to be quite honest, and I'll close with this and I'll sit down here, is the beginning of a process. So as I said before, we want to make sure that the votes of this great community count for all the reasons that have been talked about by the speakers who've had the opportunity to talk before me. So I thank you all very much, and again, I look so forward to the opportunity to have a discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll start on my right.
Thank you. Good evening. I guess I'm the lucky one that gets to go first. So I am Jennifer Dribbin. I'm here on behalf of Congressman Dutch Ruppersberger, who couldn't be here this evening. As many of you know, he proudly mentions anywhere that he goes that his district is home to not one but two Army installations, both Aberdeen Proving Ground and Fort Meade. And he is continuing to be the co-chair of the Army Caucus in the House, and now will be working with his colleague Congressman Harris on the Appropriations Committee. So he asked me to come tonight and read this statement from him. I deeply regret not being able to join you in person here tonight and would like to offer my personal thanks to the Army and to the Army Alliance for its invitation and leadership. The people of Aberdeen Proving Ground perform the most cutting-edge research and development to protect the warfighter and improve our ability to win on the battlefield. We will continue to need these men and women as long as maintaining a modern Army remains a priority for our country. I share your alarm regarding the possibility of substantial job losses within our community. However, it's important to note that they remain only a possibility at this time. It is my understanding that job losses may only occur if the across-the-board budget cuts known as sequestration remain in place for fiscal year 2016 and beyond. Even then, the program review could help ensure the effect of the job cuts on essential capabilities performed at APG would likely be limited. Still, this should serve as a wake-up call to all of those in Congress who must bridge party lines, prioritize our needs, and pass a responsible budget. While sequestration has forced senseless cuts across every government agency, our defense community is unfortunately feeling a disproportionate impact. Thanks in part to early community involvement, Aberdeen emerged from the 2005 BRAC process a winner. It is now a research, development, test, and evaluation center of excellence. These are our missions of the future, and we will help to insulate APG from the kinds of cuts likely elsewhere in the country. Further, the BRAC investments made at the federal, state, and local level by way of buildings, traffic improvements, and workforce training will hopefully shield the installation, even if the Army must reduce its force. While I hope the subject of tonight's meeting never comes to pass, I'm heartened to see the community and business leaders coming together to plan for this worst-case scenario. I, along with the rest of Maryland's congressional delegation, including Senators Barbara Mikulski and Ben Cardin, will continue to monitor the situation and pledge to fight any proposal to weaken Aberdeen's world-class workforce. Your mission is not only critical to our state, but to our country's national security. Sincerely, Dutch Ruppersberger, Member of Congress. Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. First and foremost, I would like to thank each of you and every man and woman in the audience wearing or having currently worn the uniform for your service to our country. My name is Kevin Reigert. I'm here tonight representing Congressman Andy Harris. Congressman Harris, as many of you may know, serves on the House Appropriations Committee, which plays a vital role in establishing federal spending priorities on behalf of the American taxpayer. Congressman Harris is committed to ensuring that our investments in America's defense advance our military superiority and our cost-effective uses of hard-earned taxpayer dollars. We live in a very dangerous world with constant threats. Aberdeen Proving Ground is an integral component of protecting the United States, both at home and abroad. APG's research and development missions are not duplicated or available anywhere else in the United States. Simply put, our 21st century military needs what APG offers. Congressman Harris recognizes that Aberdeen Proving Ground is an important asset to Hartford, Cecil, the surrounding counties, and the state of Maryland. Equally important, APG serves as a key installation for maintaining our military's readiness posture, and Congressman Harris therefore proudly joins with his colleagues in Congress to oppose efforts to diminish the unique capabilities that reside at APG. Moreover, while APG is not located in the 1st Congressional District, many of those hardworking Marylanders that Congressman Harris represents work at Aberdeen Proving Ground and the businesses which support it. A reduction in the thousands of employees supporting APG would have devastating effects on our local small businesses that depend on the purchasing power of the APG workforce, with significant negative impact on our local and regional economy. As an appropriator who puts the taxpayers first and firmly believes in a strong national defense, Congressman Harris respectfully submits that spending money to preserve the functions at APG truly embodies the phrase, money well spent. The operations at APG are critical to Maryland's economy and, even more importantly, to our country's long-term military technological superiority. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to begin by thanking you for inviting me to speak tonight. I am Barbara Canavan, Superintendent of Hartford County Public Schools, and I'm here this evening representing 37,500 students and 5,000 employees. I am pleased to have the opportunity to speak with the panel regarding the ongoing, valuable partnerships that Hartford County Public Schools has forged with Aberdeen Proving Ground. The unique mission and generosity of APG resonates in our community. We acknowledge them and their mission and recognize that we have an important role in building the future workforce for this federal installation. We are deliberate and intentional in our quest to provide optimal opportunities for all students in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. At this juncture, I would like to highlight several of those programs. APG scientists and engineers have supported us in curriculum development and mentor our students in 4 unique magnet programs located throughout our county. The programs include the Aberdeen High School Science and Math Academy, the Homeland Security Preparedness at Joppatown High School, the International Baccalaureate Program located at Edgewood High School, and the Natural Resources Agricultural Program at North Hartford High School. Engineering as elementary is now fully implemented in all of our elementary schools thanks to the support of people at APG. Project Lead the Way has been instituted in multiple middle and high schools across the county. The Biomedical Science Program is currently implemented at 2 local high schools, namely Bel Air and Havre de Grace. Hartford Technical High School features a signature cybersecurity program. The National Math and Science Initiative Grant, our partnerships with Boeing and the Department of Defense have significantly increased the rigor and participation of high school students in advanced placement courses at both Aberdeen and Havre de Grace high schools. Hartford County Public School math and science departments have hosted multiple STEM nights for elementary and middle school students and numerous opportunities for teacher professional development. The activities were a direct result of our partnerships with the Northeastern Maryland Technology Council and APG. The summer of 2014 was the pilot season for RISE, Real-World Internships in Science and Engineering intern program. It was located at APG and sponsored by the Oak Ridge Institute for Science and Education. Our partnership with CCOM and SURDEC enabled approximately 20 selected high school juniors to participate in a 2-week internship. The participants, who have an interest in STEM but may lack access to opportunities and resources, worked closely with professional scientists and engineers in intense STEM-related internships. Those sponsored by CCOM were cybersecurity and software development, battlefield video simulation, data sharing experience, information assurance availability, and soldier training video experience. Sponsored by SURDEC, Global Navigation Satellite System, TECD systems, battery material lab studies, fuel reformation lab studies, virtual prototyping labs. The program was extremely successful in exposing students to both career and academic opportunities. And the plan, as I understand it from Mr. Martin, is to double those opportunities in the summer of 2015. And we thank you just absolutely from the bottom of our hearts for all of those opportunities. The system is looking forward to piloting the Harford Technology Laboratory at APG. This pilot was developed through a joint partnership between APG, industry, HCPS, and several community organizations. The Harford Technical Laboratory will afford middle school students the opportunity to explore technology in a hands-on, specialized lab environment. In conclusion, I want to emphasize to each of you that the unselfish contributions of our APG partners and colleagues are integral to the success of our instructional programs. We are proud of the collaborative esprit de corps that we have established with both the Army personnel and civilians associated with your facility. They are part of our community, and we hope with your help that they will be able to continue to call Harford County home. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Swoboda, and I'm with the State of Maryland's Office of Military Affairs, housed within the Maryland Department of Business and Economic Development. We are proud, as you've seen earlier, to include APG as one of our top economic drivers here in our state, only to follow Fort Meade and Johns Hopkins, and to have those as your top 3 employers in any state. I think anyone would be proud. If you were to add the total direct employment of those on APG to what we call the indirect jobs, those defense contractor jobs here within our community. And in addition, the induced jobs, those are our jobs that were created to support those positions that have been added to APG within our community. We would bring that total to just about 40,000 jobs that are connected to Aberdeen Proving Ground. Looking at the economic impact of this installation of one of our top economic drivers, in 2003, the economic impact on the state of Maryland was $1.8 billion. And in 2008 federal fiscal year, that increased to $4.3 billion. We know that it's greater today. We are currently working on an update to the economic impact study. And that comes as no surprise with the growth that we've seen here at APG, that we've seen within the Northeast Maryland community. Aberdeen Proving Ground alone obligated $1.5 billion to Maryland businesses in federal fiscal year 12. With those figures, you can see the great importance that this installation has to not just the region, but to our state as a whole. Maryland, we recognize that. We have worked very closely with the local community, with the region, with our federal congressional delegation to support APG. And since 2008, we can proudly say that we have invested $22 million in higher education with the building of the Towson University facility here in partnership with Harford Community College. $123 million in public school construction, and over $11 million to support businesses here within Harford County tied to Aberdeen Proving Ground. With that, I will conclude and thank the installation for their important work that they do on behalf of the warfighter, for our nation, and we are indeed proud to call you a member of our community. Thank you.
Good evening, distinguished panel. Good evening, our military, civilian force, and those of you who are here for information. General Crawford, I must make one statement before I start. My name is Wayne Daugherty, Mayor, City of Haverty Grace. My family is very proud we were brought here to Aberdeen Proving Ground in 1961, and we made the City of Haverty Grace our home, and we thank you. Let me first say that the City of Haverty Grace has enjoyed a positive and strong relationship with the Aberdeen Proving Ground and the military leaders on post, to include the civilian leaders. The City of Haverty Grace, just being minutes from Aberdeen Proving Ground, has seen an increase in recent years of Aberdeen Proving Ground employees relocating to our city. With this has come the strength in communities, in residential growth, and in our business community, and also in our industrial park, and a renewed interest in our downtown business community and events. I feel any further reduction in military or civilian personnel will have an adverse effect on our community. Aberdeen Proving Ground has always, since its inception, been a leader in test and development and technology, which has strengthened the defense of this great nation, which lends us support to its surrounding communities totally. But I must end my remarks as we end prayer at the City Council, and we always end our prayer with the following. I end with something which is included. May God bless our military men and women. We have thanked them for their sacrifices and for our freedoms and for our freedom of forums such as this. God bless you.
Good evening. I'm Mayor Mike Bennett, the City of Aberdeen, the home of opportunity. You cannot get on Aberdeen Proving Ground, the upper cantonment area, without going through the City of Aberdeen. We're very proud to be that close to the base and to be able to render service. The Aberdeen Proving Ground, when they came to Aberdeen in 1917, the city was 25 years old. In fact, in 2017, both of us will be celebrating 100 years for the base and 125 years for the city. We're already having conversation about celebrating that unique partnership. I bring you greetings from our City Council, from our 15,000 plus citizens in the city. We are firmly behind you in this endeavor and will support in any way that we possibly can in what is going on. You know that we are partners with you and provide your water and sewer, so anything that happens to Aberdeen Proving Ground is of great interest to the City of Aberdeen. So that's pretty much the end of my remarks. Thank you for your service, and as a proud Army Vietnam veteran, I salute all of you. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Brian Simmons, retired Army civilian, Army Alliance board member, senior vice president of Sigmatech Inc., a defense contractor in the area. Colonel and Lieutenant Colonel, thank you for coming. The transparency is really appreciated. I do have a few concerns, though, and I wanted to state them for the record. They go to the heart of the analysis. The Army's got three primary accounts to balance as a function of resources: equipment modernization, readiness, and force structure. The SPIA could have tied to any one of those, but this one in particular tied directly to force structure. But the Proving Ground mission isn't a force structure-driven mission. There's only one organizational unit on Aberdeen Proving Ground. We love them, but there's only one. The Aberdeen mission is driven by the equipment modernization accounts, and the military and civilian reduction should thus be applied as a function of that funding. Applying a global 4,300 cut to Aberdeen Proving Ground, and I know that's not what you're advocating, but if applied, it should be uniquely applied to the mission accounts of the organizations on post, and there's 90 of them. It's not like one 4,300. It must be sliced and diced that fine. The SPIA baseline should also recognize the cuts that have already occurred at Aberdeen Proving Ground, the headquarters reductions, the staff reductions, the hiring freeze, the first sequestration, and all based on the reduced modernization funding thus far. The modernization budget has already been halved since 2009, and there are 1,000 less people working at Aberdeen Proving Ground already just over the last 2 years, counting contractors. The Army selected Aberdeen to be a center of excellence in BRAC 2005 for 2 areas, chem biodefense and C4ISR. We all know that. But the financial investments from the Army for the most complex, largest BRAC the Army ever took on were extraordinary. And the personal investment, sacrifice of the people who packed up and moved here from Virginia, from New Jersey, and elsewhere around the country, because they loved the Army and wanted to stay with the mission, that was also extraordinary. As was the support of the community, academia, and industry to make sure this worked upon success. It is a work in progress, but it's hitting full stride. You can't get to 3,300 civilians without dealing with the same folks that just relocated. The highest 3 modernization priorities for the Army begin at Aberdeen: enabling squads with improved lethality protection and situational awareness, facilitating mission command, and increasing lethality, mobility, and vehicle survivability. That's our roots. That's what we do. So we share with you the great concern of a hollow Army, either in the number of soldiers or an Army forced to use obsolete equipment in combat. Ensuring soldiers have the best equipment is what APG does, and our soldiers deserve the full support of this workforce. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Riley. Newly elected official, Hartford and Cecil County, District 35B. My primary reason for being here this evening and driving from Annapolis is my passion and my drive and my belief in our military. And those employees and those civilians that lend all their support so they can actually fulfill their duties for you and I. I certainly am grateful and thank you for your service. Secondly, I believe that these proposed cuts will be devastating not only to Hartford and Cecil County, but to our country and to our state. And as an elected official, I assure all of you out there in your seats that I will work hand in hand, side by side with you politically, whatever I can do, and also as your neighbor to fight what I believe these crazy ideas or proposals are. And I hope that the board, that you take back consideration all of these views of the people and the workers that are out here and see them as people, as families, as kids, as moms and dads, and the devotion that they have for our country. And as others have said, some of them have, been deployed from other places to come here because we have such an excellent facility and we're doing such great work for the entire country right here in Hartford County. And I would hope that you take all these back to your board and consider them and pray and keep Hartford and APG strong and working for our country. Thank you.
My name's Ed Thomas. I'm Vice President of CACI International, former Deputy to the Commanding General of the Army's Communications Electronics Command, and I made the BRAC move from New Jersey to Maryland. I'm glad to hear that APG is not on any special targeted list, that we're being looked at just like all of the other Army large installations are being looked at, and that's the calming message that I'm going to bring back to my workforce after this evening's event. I do, however, worry about APG mission impact. I lived through the major disruption of the Army C4ISR mission that resulted from the BRAC move. It's now largely reconstituted, enabled in part by the Maryland state and local community leadership because they really understand the mission, they've embraced the mission, and they support the mission. But any further mission disruption at APG, in my opinion, will affect an environment. It will affect the soldiers' warfighting environment. In the near term, through delayed fieldings of new operational capabilities, and in the longer term, through a degradation in the R&D efforts here, which will result in a degradation of the Army's technological advancement downstream. So I ask you to please consider that in your deliberations. Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm Dennis Galladay. I'm the president of Harford Community College. Both the Board of Trustees and I are aware of the long-standing, enduring, and expanding relationship that the college has with APG. In fact, our current board chair, Dr. Jay Valdez, is a world-renowned scientist who just recently retired from his duties at ECBC, and another one of our board members is Dr. James McCauley, who's also a scientist associated with the Post. We have had a good, long-standing relationship with the Post, both in terms of the leadership there. We have had long discussions with leaders such as Gary Martin. We also have had our faculty and staff with long-standing relationships with personnel at the Post, especially in the creation and expansion of STEM programs. Our college has a summer STEM boot camp for at-risk students, and we also have a STEM teaching academy for teachers in the local public school systems. We have personnel from the Post who come and serve as instructors for those programs and who also serve as adjunct instructors for our credit and non-credit programs at the college. So we believe that the Post has a very definite positive impact on us, and we hope that we have a definite positive impact on the Post as well. These reductions could result in damage to us because it could take away from us those people that we depend upon for scientific expertise in our educational program. We would hate to see that happen. We are a progressive college, we're a growing college, and we need to make sure that we remain strong in the STEM fields that we offer. Not only do we offer that initial link into education, especially in STEM areas, to not only educate leaders on the Post right now, scientists and engineers, but also those who are going one day to be the leaders on the Post, those young men and women that we can engage in and interest in STEM fields and military fields. We have a number of military personnel from the Post who take classes from us. We have a number of veterans who take classes from us. And if I remember correctly, a couple years ago, we had a Soldier of the Year who was also one of our students, an honor student at the college. We also serve as a broker for higher education in the region through the University Center and in cooperation with Towson University, as has been mentioned, in the building right next door. In those programs, we have stepped outside of our role of educating students in associate's degrees. We bring in universities to also offer education in master's and doctoral degrees and advanced certificate programs. So we see ourselves as an integral part of APG. We see ourselves as a definite link to your mission, and we want both of us to continue strong in that relationship. Thank you very much.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm Diane Lane, representing Cecil College. I'm certain that from everything I've heard this evening, you've heard much about the economic impact that Aberdeen Proving Ground has on this area, which is undoubtedly of critical significance to all of us. But I would like to share with you a perspective that I believe is of equal significance, and it impacts the youngest citizens in Harford and Cecil counties. And that is the impact that APG has had on shaping the career aspirations of young children all the way through college. More than 3 years ago, a coalition of military, government, industry, and education formed to respond to the long-term implications of the base realignment. Early in the discussions, we decided to advance a response that not only expanded capacity for the immediate workforce needs, we developed strategies to prepare a workforce that would support the Department of Defense over multiple generations. This approach required that we reframe the career aspirations of students starting in elementary school and to shift the focus of parents to encourage their children to pursue education and employment in the STEM fields. Unlike many regions, we had the benefit of being able to tangibly link education to employment through APG. Through STEM nights and career programs, APG, college, and industry scientists have delivered hands-on programs for 3,345 third, fourth, fifth, and sixth graders. These young students, along with 3,500 family members, have been introduced to educational pathways in STEM that lead to professional opportunities. These programs have emerged as a catalyst to raise the career aspirations of young people. The end result is that we have expanded awareness and interest in engineering, cybersecurity, technology, and research professions. And the result of that is, and you've already heard a little bit of this, our summer camps have waiting lists, and our college enrollments have seen continuous growth. Shift in public awareness of this nature do not happen quickly unless it comes with a promise of a better future. APG has been an amazing partner in this community, and they made it possible for us to make that promise. So as you make this decision and you carry this information forward, what I ask of you tonight is that you help us to keep that promise to our young people, that they will have a prosperous future. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Pam Clore, and I am the President and CEO of the Harford County Chamber of Commerce. We have been a partner and a longtime friend of APG. We are one of the largest chambers in the state of Maryland. Why is that important? That's important because we have a lot of businesses behind us, and all of those business voices have a lot of clout. When I say clout, I'm talking about not just addressing you, the Army, but addressing all of our legislators who are a part of making these decisions. If there's one thing that business understands, it's how tough it is to make really difficult decisions when it comes to finances and the money that we're running low on. We're in this together. And as we say to our elected officials, we want to be a part of those decisions. So we thank you for the chance to talk to you tonight, and we hope this isn't the last time before these decisions are made. If there is one message, you keep hearing about the economic impact this is going to have. We all know that. And obviously, the economic impact is going to be made somewhere. We all understand that too. But I hope the one message that we take back to those who are really pushing for these decisions is that nothing is more important than the safety of this country, the safety of our citizens, and certainly the safety of our war fighters. We salute you, we thank you for what you're doing, and let us help you. God bless America. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Webb. I'm the Cecil County Economic Development Director. I'm here on behalf of the County Executive, Terry Moore. And we really do appreciate this opportunity to share with you some of our concerns that we have on how this would impact our citizens. Cecil County considers Aberdeen Proving Ground to be our #1 employer. While we know that your borders don't touch our borders, you're a jurisdiction without end, and you touch so many of us. It's a regional impact. The mission of Aberdeen Proving Ground is critical to the security of our nation. And with the recent activities around the world, our nation depends on the technical advances and capabilities and the approach that this facility provides. It was just a few months ago that Cecil County highlighted a 6-month effort to destroy Syrian chemical weapons. The mission included 5 Cecil County civilian scientists. They were all volunteers, and they successfully destroyed some of the world's deadliest chemicals, preventing any further harm to innocent people. We are proud. We are proud of the work that our citizens do to protect us and our nation. These employees also have significant intellectual property. They contribute to our county. They support the next generation, as you just heard. While our business base is small, there are some companies with direct relationships with Aberdeen Proving Ground, such as W.L. Gore and ATK. There are also very strong secondary and tertiary business support that our citizens and our businesses supply to Aberdeen Proving Ground. And while we understand the crisis that you are facing, Aberdeen Proving Ground's mission of test, evaluation, research, development is critical to protecting our nation. It's critical for our interests around the globe, and most importantly, those that serve us on foreign soil. Aberdeen Proving Ground is the best they have in survivability. Thank you for your consideration. Good night.
Good evening. Dean Ertwein, retired General Officer and member of the Army Alliance. I know you'll get plenty of input on socioeconomic factors. I'd like to join Mr. Simmons and several others in highlighting mission. Aberdeen Proving Ground has historically been a center of gravity for Army testing, research and development, and chem bio defense. And those contributions are long-standing, well-known, and substantial. Then the 2005 BRAC created, as Mr. Simmons pointed out, really two centers of excellence, one for Army C4ISR, which includes cyber warfare, which we all know is so critical now, and the other, a defense-wide CBRN defense enterprise. That same legislation enabled the investment of well over $1 billion in capital investment here on the Proving Ground, in addition to the hundreds of millions it took to move the organizations. That now we find ourselves about 4 years after that BRAC closed, and those organizations have gone through rough transitions, leveled out on personnel, and are hitting their stride mission-wise. And considering what's going on in the world, it's probably more important today than ever, particularly the cyber defense mission and the chem bio mission, that they be well-resourced. So my ask is simply to point out the imperative that the mission contributions be the predominant factor in racking and stacking the options for what you've already decided is tough decisions coming up. Thank you.
General Crawford, General Utley, General Singh, thank you for this opportunity. My name, I'm retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Shauna McGowan. I work for W.L. Gore. I also serve on the Army Alliance Board. W.L. Gore, as many of you know, is a privately held company recognized globally for our innovative products, probably best known for Gore-Tex. We have been a significant employer in Northeast Maryland for 40 years. In fact, today, Gore is the largest private sector employer in neighboring Cecil County, employing 2,400 associates in 13 plants across the county. So many of these associates live in either Cecil or Harford counties and are active in their local communities with their children attending schools and many family members working at APG. So any changes at APG would have ripple effects for W.L. Gore and other businesses, to include the labor markets, education opportunities, housing markets, and overall quality of life. Additionally, in addition to being an important economic impact to the state's economy, APG is an important point of pride for Maryland, one that reflects a uniquely talented group of scientists and engineers who are dedicated to providing military technology advancements for current and future generations of warfighters. So W.L. Gore and Associates support not only the maintenance of APG, but also any efforts to grow this significant, impactful military installation. Thank you.
Good evening. Mike Parker with the Northeastern Maryland Technology Council and a long-term civilian employee of the Army at Aberdeen Proving Ground. Aberdeen Proving Ground has an outstanding history and demonstrated capability to address the environmental remediation of the challenges of almost 100 years of operation. Despite that very strong track record, there are still very, very significant challenges facing the installation with the very large burials of chemical weapons and chemical agents which have the potential of contaminating groundwater as well as the bay. To properly address those challenges is going to require predominantly the intellectual capability that the civilian workforce, scientists and engineers here at Aberdeen Proving Ground bring to bear. Without that technology, the timely remediation of those challenges is really not going to be met. Without a quantification of the potential impact of a civilian drawdown that would impact the ability to maintain that intellectual capability to address the environmental challenges here at Aberdeen Proving Ground, the finding of no significant impact is legally insufficient, and the programmatic environmental assessment really should be reopened to quantify that and fully understand it. Thank you.
My name is Bruce England. I'm with the Susquehanna Workforce Network, and I am representing the Workforce Investment Board for Cecil and Harford County. I often represent the 8,000 businesses that exist in this region and the labor force of over 200,000 people. The Department of Defense has a long history with our region, and it's been one of support and mutual benefit. Most recently, through the BRAC 2005 implementation and our post-BRAC successes, it's a result of many federal, state, Harford County, Cecil County, and local investments. Many of these were highly recognized by national, statewide, local, regional awards, honors, and recognitions. As you know, Aberdeen Proving Ground employs a highly skilled, technical, and specialized workforce. The proposed reduction would result in a great socioeconomic impact. DOD recognizes this to some degree, but not to the total impact to Maryland, Harford County, and the region. Further, the assessment doesn't fully quantify the environmental impact that will result from the potential economic loss to residents and the community. I encourage a reconsideration so that we can realize the benefits of government, local, and community investments in Aberdeen Proving Ground and the Army. Thank you.
My name is Sharon Jacobs, and I'm the president for Women Defense Mid-Atlantic Chapter here in Harford County. And I'm also a small business owner and retired military officer of the United States Army. I'm speaking on behalf of the Women Defense Mid-Atlantic Chapter. We were established here in 2009 as a result of the BRAC, and our purpose has been to support and develop leadership of women leaders as well as our members in the national defense and national security areas. In 2010, we partnered with the Harford Community College and started an endowment with the college there to support STEM education. We completed that endowment this past January. $25,000 we donated to Harford Community College ahead of dedication for our Women Defense Laboratory here, supporting STEM. That library will be used by Harford County students, high school students, as well as the Harford Community College teachers and students attending the school here. We have also contributed over $40,000 to the community in various programs, whether it's scholarship recipient students that we provide annually, a $25 scholarship to students in Harford County. We are also increasing that scholarship to reach into Cecil County this year, as well as providing over $10,000 to the Upper Chesapeake Hospital for the Breast Cancer Awareness, the LifeNet program. So we are a contributor to our community here. We feel we are partners with our community here, and we would like to continue to have that assessment considered in the decisions going forward. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Glenn Gillis. As a lifelong resident of Aberdeen and with 30+ years of dedicated work supporting the warfighter and with the great diversity of mission and undertaken here at APG, I'd like to voice my concerns on how the conclusions were developed for the SPIA report and how they will be used to make any Army restructuring decisions. I wear many hats in this community. As one of the leaders of the Harford County Economic Development Advisory Board and its affiliate organizations, We clearly see the negative economic impact, the cutting some or all of the 4,000 jobs, and the significant loss of the linked secondary jobs will have on this region. As one of the leaders in the community organizations here, we clearly see the negative impact on the charitable and over 20 professional organizations' activities that are directly aligned, sponsored, and supported by APG in this region. As one of the many DoD industry leaders, we clearly see the negative impact on our ability to sustain our presence here, given the potential job cuts and the continued budget and acquisition issues that we face. As one of the many taxpayers, we clearly see the potential negative impact of the ability of APG, the Army, and ultimately the nation to have mission success and to save lives for some of the unclear objectives and criteria used in the SPIA report. We ask that the Army considers the application of the cookie-cutter methodology employed by the SPIA, in which we believe does not apply to APG and does not capture the detailed economic and mission impact of these jobs. These jobs are not excess, they are essential. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tamara Rush, and I'm the owner of Tenax Technologies, a woman-owned small business based in Harford County. I'm also the president of the local chapter of AUSA, the Association of the United States Army. I want to let you know how passionate we are about our soldiers in Aberdeen. This past year, we actually changed the name to recognize a pretty special soldier who was killed in action. We're now the Major General Harry Green chapter of AUSA. Soldiers actually only represent 3% of Aberdeen Proving Ground, but we are proud to support them. To date, we've partnered with another organization where we've shipped 22 tons of fun stuff and goodies to our soldiers who are deployed, and we'll continue to do that going forward. We're thrilled to continue to demonstrate our commitment to APG through our government, academia, and industry partners, and we're thrilled to support the mission. As a reminder, AUSA is the voice for the Army and support for the soldier. Thank you for everything you do.
Good evening, and thank you for coming to hear us tonight. I'm Barney Mickle. I'm a past president and board member of the Army Alliance, but I'm here tonight to talk about a program that's near and dear to my heart that has a different tone, and that is the Aberdeen Proving Ground Boy Scouts of America STEM Merit Badge Days. 5 years ago, the current, at that time, Senior Mission Commander, Major General Justice, decided he wanted to reintroduce scouting to Aberdeen. And his mechanism for doing that was to create a Boy Scouts STEM Merit Badge Day at Aberdeen Proving Ground. The concept of bringing hundreds of scouts and their associated leaders and parents onto the Proving Ground was not an inconsequential one. And the leadership that was shown by the Proving Ground in doing that was tremendous. We have reached scouts in the thousands and generated thousands of merit badges going into our 5th year now. And the example of service that the military and civilian community of Aberdeen has shown to our scouting community is incalculable. And this is something we've heard about, all of the STEM partnerships, and they're very consequential. And each one of those has the same aspect that the STEM Merit Badge Days have, and that is the example of service to your country, public service to your community and country that's shown by the actual hands-on support from our Proving Ground members, the military and civilian community. We only have about 1,500 military members on the Proving Ground. They're talking about a potential cut of 1,000 of them. Personally, I believe we need every single one, and we need them to continue doing what they're doing now, which is reaching out to our community and our young people and showing them the example of leadership and community involvement that helps build the next generation, not just of STEM workers, but of service workers. Thank you.
I am Wyatt Colclasure, past president of the Army Alliance, and I was the president of the Alliance during the time of the DoD recommendations, the BRAC Commission study, the subsequent passage into statute of the BRAC Commission's recommendations, and the early stages of implementation. One of the recommendations that the BRAC Commission made was to create those centers of excellence here at Aberdeen Proving Ground. And in doing that, they certainly increased the strength of the technical capabilities at Aberdeen Proving Ground, which was a great advantage. And they actually also increased the diversity, which becomes a strength when the scientists need to ask somebody else who understands their language, hey, what do I do about this? How does this impact what I'm doing? So we thought those were excellent outcomes. Now, in light of that, the arithmetic that went into the calculations does give us some significant concern, because the standard model, and I understand you have to have a standard model, is that about 30% of the installation structure is civilians, and they are mostly in the support structure. At Aberdeen Proving Ground, of course, over 80% of the workforce is civilians, and they are not the support structure, they are the core capability for these R&D and testing organizations. In my active Army career, I was a tester for much of that, and I had the opportunity to test in Arctic, desert, and tropic conditions, both developmental testing and operational testing. And one of the things you learn is that when you get done with all the data and the number crunchers go in the back room and they bring you out a bunch more numbers, you don't just take those numbers and go from there. You have to have somebody who understands what's going on, apply that senior leadership, that management experience to say, does this make sense, and is this really the right answer? So I was really very heartened to hear those comments about what happens next with the numbers, and then the senior leadership looks at those to see if they really do make sense. So I encourage you to take these things that we've been saying tonight and please ask the question, because in many ways, the arithmetic that came out of those numbers just don't tell the right story for Aberdeen Proving Ground. Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Sean Sullivan. Wasn't planning on making the comments tonight, but I thought I could offer a unique perspective as someone who was not a native to Harford County. Up until last year, I was part of that 570,000. And I can tell you 15 years ago, as a young chemical engineer, growing up in a small town that graduated less than 100 students, and going to college for chemical engineering before the word STEM even existed, I joined the ROTC program and had a dream, and that was to come to Aberdeen Proving Grounds, because even from over 500 miles away, it was known as the place where science happens in the Army. And fortunately, over the course of my 10 years, I was able to wind up here and be part of a historic unit, Tech Escort Unit, now 22nd Chem Battalion, and I'm looking forward to continuing to support this community. I'm now a member of many of the organizations whose leads have made comments here tonight, and I plan to stick my roots here in Aberdeen and Hartford County to support this, installation, and I hope that the installation stays here and stays strong. Thank you.
General Crawford, Colonels. I'm Tim McNamara. Many of you know me through my 30-plus years of service at the Proving Ground, but I'm not here in official capacity tonight, but more so representing DOD and Department of Army civilians. I'm one of those people that Mr. Glassman talked about, second-generation APG employee. My mom and dad both worked out at the Proving Ground. Proud to say I have a daughter who's out there now. So we've got 3 generations of civilian service dedicated to this Army, our Army, that I care a lot about. You've heard all the numbers, 90-some tenants here, 5 centers of excellence, how many people are employed. But this really, to me, comes down to not my family, but my neighbors and the people in this community. I've had the pleasure throughout my career to be able to go around and see the work that's going on in our laboratories out on the ranges, and it's cutting edge. I find it interesting and timing-wise that Mr. Kendall, the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics, was up on the Hill yesterday testifying about how do you intend to maintain the technological edge in this austere environment we're up against. And while over the years, and with BRAC in particular, we have been able to build world-class facilities for world-class scientists, engineers. It also takes that whole support team, technicians, people doing a lot of hard work here. It's really those people who are going to maintain that. APG's been around almost 100 years. That means we helped win World War I. We helped win World War II. We helped win the Cold War. We've been decisive in the war on terror, and we're going to be ready for the next thing that comes up. But it's really about the people, not the infrastructure, not the equipment they have, but what they bring to the fight. And at APG in particular, it's Department of Army civilians side by side with soldiers that make that happen. Thank you.
Gentlemen, and other distinguished guests, My name is Yvonne Emanuel. I work for CCOM, and I'm currently employed in G8. I am a survivor of the BRAC. I have been commuting, and I'm currently staying in Maryland during the week. The commute from New Jersey starts at 3:30 in the morning to be on a van by 5, at your desk by 7:30. This is a daily commute for a lot of people who don't have a voice here tonight because they're back in New Jersey going to sleep, trying to get ready to come to work tomorrow. Now, I'm concerned about the process that was referenced by Colonel Councilman. The process, we're all suspicious about the process, and although you have a lot of business dignitaries and other local people speaking, we survived the BRAC, and when we go back to the office, we're very suspicious about the process. So what I'm looking for is transparency, because without transparency, you're not gonna have trust. And if you don't have trust, you've got a very shaky workforce. My other concern is the mission. Granted, the mission isn't going anywhere. It's not going to just disappear. So what happens when these cuts occur? Is it going to be contracted out? Are we going to have to get picked up by a contractor? These are the things that we speak about in the office. My other concern is in late spring and early summer, what can we expect to hear in late spring and early summer? Because that was a time frame that you referenced. So now I'm building a timeline in my head saying, okay, late spring, early summer, they're going to come out with a new meeting, a new forum, and give us some idea of what's going on. And with that new idea of what's going on, I'm looking for transparency. So I doubt very much that they think that we're thinking this, but they need to know that we are real people who get up at 3:30 in the morning to make it to APG, or when I go home to my single-parent family, I'm making a sacrifice to be here, to make sure things work and run. And I want transparency, and I want them to be accountable for it, to let them know it's not just we're cutting spaces or we're moving things around. That 3-card Monte that they're gonna do up there affects real people. My other concern is what happens to these children that are in these programs like the STEM and the other outreach programs that you all so eloquently explained that these children are involved in. I'm a great advocate for children, and I am concerned with the level of trust that they're gonna have if these programs cease and desist. What are you telling them? If you start something like this and then you pull the rug from under them, what happens to them? And you want them to trust the government, to work in the government capacity in the future? With what trust? You've taken their future from them. That's something that these guys need to know and realize, that even if we end up getting cut, these programs have to exist for these children because they don't understand this. We barely understand it. You know they don't understand it. So they have to have some continuity. The potential for the loss of corporate knowledge, that was the concern at Fort Monmouth. We followed our jobs to APG. Now, CCOM and the CERDEC and all the other activities are not a turnkey operation. You can't just plug it in and say the lab's going to work. That is why you had so many cost overruns, because it's not a turnkey operation. You had to have a lab going at Fort Monmouth. You had to have a lab going at APG. Where's the lab going to go now? Because the mission's not going away. With that, what happens to the people that are in this capacity? We came down to APG, but everybody may not go to the next installation, wherever it may be. So what's going to happen to that knowledge? it's going to get lost. And if you really think you can hire somebody off the street to take the place of the corporate knowledge that could potentially be lost with another move or a cut, I dread to think of what would happen. Just like Eddie Thomas said, there's no way that you're going to have the fieldings on time, the delayed fieldings, the loss of corporate knowledge, these turnkey operations. It just can't happen. That's the reality of it. They're looking at numbers, we're looking at experience. You can't put the two together. You can say numbers, oh, we cut this and we saved that. But what did you really lose? What you lost, you can't place a dollar value on. I don't think they're concerned about losing our trust, but they need to be concerned with losing the corporate knowledge. And I think that's the end of my notes. Thank you.
And we owe you nothing less than complete transparency. And that's why we did this supplemental to the PEA. And if there's anything we can do to further rebuild this trust between you and the institution, please let us know, because that's why we're here. As far as what you will expect to hear in the late spring or early summer, it will be primarily concerned with the men and women serving in uniform. And that will be the numbers going from 490 probably down to 450. The civilian piece will probably take a little bit more to work out as they figure out how the funding streams will work, where it's going to go, and what sort of organizations that will happen. But I do not believe that they're going to say, Aberdeen Proving Ground, you have X amount of civilians, you have to give us X amount from that. That's an attention getter, I suppose. The mission and the strategic mission and the needs of the nation, of course, is what will take the primary purpose of where anything will happen in the future. And again, I apologize if somehow we've lost your faith along the way, and I hope that we're doing something here tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Adam Kerrigan. I'm an employee of CERDEC currently at the Joint SATCOM Engineering Center, which is one of the premier SATCOM facilities you've got within the Department of Defense. The main reason that I'm standing here before you right now is because I want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to put faces to these numbers. The 3,000 people that you're talking about, I want to talk about them. And as I'm saying this also, I want to point out that I'm a steward for AFGE Local 1904. They're a lot like myself. I was actually in the active duty Army from 1997 to 2005. 2 combat tours, both of them initial entry. Couldn't be in the military anymore, wanted to stay close to soldiers. I became a Department of the Army civilian. Luckily, I walked right in. I did 2 more rotations in Southwest Asia as a Department of the Army civilian. When I transferred from working directly for CECOM to working for CERDEC, the hope was to move one step closer to being able to design systems that soldiers would be proud to use. I don't know how to describe it better than that, but having been the guy who sat in a shelter for months on end, wondering who it was that designed the, whatever it was that I happened to be using at the time, I believe that they owed something better than what I had it when I went through. I'm standing before you to let you know that the 3,000 plus people that you're talking about getting rid of are carrying a similar weight. They're carrying with them the desire more than anything else to get a job done that it seems sometimes nobody else is willing to do, or maybe aren't fully capable of understanding. So again, the primary point that I wanted to make, and I hope I've done it well, is that these are not numbers. These are people that have given significant portions of their lives to the United States Army and to what it represents. And I'm one of them. Thank you.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. I'm Dean Castor, Senior Vice President for Corporate Strategy and Business Development with the University of Maryland Upper Chesapeake Health System. Our health system is based in Harford County. It's comprised of 2 acute care hospitals, University of Maryland Harford Memorial Hospital in Havre de Grace, and University of Maryland Upper Chesapeake Medical Center in Bel Air. On an annual basis, just to give you a perspective, We admit through the two hospitals about 25,000 people. We treat over 90,000 emergency room visits between the two organizations. And we care for approximately 190,000 outpatient visits annually. The health system that I represent has been in Harford County just over 100 years. And 1912 was our first date of service, which is just earlier, a few years before the Proving Ground was opened as a formal installation. We're very proud of the partnership over many years that we've been able to develop with the Proving Ground, particularly as it relates to some of the services that we've been able to work collaboratively with through the Kirk Army Medical Clinic, which is on base. In terms of our health system, as meeting the needs of the community and meeting the needs of the Proving Ground, we know we had to continue to grow and expand. And to that extent, to help us with that, a little over a year ago, we merged with the University of Maryland Medical System. And as part of that, the University of Maryland Medical System has given us access to capital that's allowed us to expand. A great example of that is a year and a half ago, we opened a world-class cancer center, the Kaufman Cancer Center in Bel Air. In fact, several months ago, we had the opportunity to host the county executive, the garrison commander, and several of his leaders at the cancer center and give them a tour. Over these years, our partnership with the Proving Ground has spanned several areas, from providing online access to medical records at our two hospitals so that enlisted or civilian employees that are treated on base can get access to the medical records at our hospital for seamless care. We have also provided outreach efforts through screening programs on base to make sure that the enlisted members there and the civilian workforce can get access to various screening programs such as mammography services and others. In addition, we've provided lectures on site to the clinicians, the physicians, the advanced practice nurses, and others in different clinical areas such as oncology, orthopedics, cardiology, et cetera, to continue to meet some of the educational needs. So in short, our relationship with the Proving Ground goes back many years. It cuts across a wide variety of areas. And I just wanted to share with you tonight that the resources that I described are there, they're available, and we're looking forward to new opportunities to work with the Proving Ground. So thank you for being here.
Good evening. I'm Maria Terry. I'm the president of the Route 40 Business Association. The Route 40 Business Association, which has been around for more than 25 years, strongly supports Aberdeen Proving Ground in meeting the needs of the APG workforce. If the positions are lost at APG, there would be a large impact on most of our members who are located along the Route 40 corridor between Havre de Grace and Joppa. We are promoting the revitalization of this corridor to satisfy the market demand for services and retail needs that are required by this important workforce. Thank you for your consideration.
Good evening, sirs. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate your opportunity that you give us to voice our concerns to you. I don't have a prepared speech, obviously, so I'm going to speak from the heart. I want to say thank you because I'm a proud Department of the Army civilian. I'm an 085 electronics engineer. I work right at Aberdeen Proving Ground. It's a pleasure to serve the Army and serve those who serve our country, including yourselves. I'm also a citizen of Harford County, and I serve as an adjunct professor at Harford Community College, as well as an adjunct professor at Cecil College as well, so I'm quite busy. I want to say that from my perspective, and also I have something in common with a lady from New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey originally. So I started my career at Fort Monmouth in 1991, and I worked on electronic communication systems. And I want to say that I can see it from my perspective that you can't have command and control without communications. And if you don't understand the physics and the electronics behind an electronic communication systems, you're going to lose that overmatch capability. And we hear about overmatch all the time, and we realize how important it is. The predominant number of employees at Aberdeen Proving Ground, I'm sure you're well aware, are civilians just like myself. Engineering, technology, and science type of people. We are the foot soldiers in the STEM field, and I like to think I'm an active part of that in trying to bring up students. I teach physics and I teach a digital electronics course. I teach physics at Hartford Community College, and I have a great time with it, and I'm trying to bring up young engineers to follow in my footsteps. I believe in electrical engineering. I believe in all fields of engineering, not only because it helps our Army, but it helps our country. I heard a speech given by Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is, as you might know, is a physicist. He's a world-class physicist. And I'll paraphrase what he said. He said that basically engineering and science is the lifeblood of the economy of any developed country. Without engineering and science, you can't have advanced manufacturing. You can't put people on the moon like we did before. You can't imagine to have overmatch. You can't imagine to have electronic communication systems. You can't have radio systems and so on. So we are a vital part of not just the Army, but also of the economic makeup. And as you might know, engineering and science enrollment across the United States has gone down. And I'd like to try to reverse that trend, and I'm doing my part to do that. But I have to tell you, being a witness to the BRAC of 2005, and you know, if it's a second hit at Aberdeen Proving Ground, that would be a devastating message to the engineering and science community. It would hurt us, really. Speaking from my heart, from most of my colleagues who still have houses in New Jersey, and not unlike the lady, they commute over 3 hours to get here every day. As a matter of fact, I know one engineer, she commutes all the way from Neptune, New Jersey, gets the bus in Hamilton, and then gets in the bus with the rest of the folks down to Aberdeen Proving Ground. If you want to see what I'm talking about, just show up in front of our building sometime at 8 o'clock. You'll see van loads of people that come down. And look at the license plates. They're New Jersey license plates, Pennsylvania license plates, Delaware license plates, not just Maryland. So you have a lot of folks who have stuck with the Army in spite of all that, and I plead with you, you know, please don't do this again. I appreciate what the Colonel said about the 3,200 number. I realize that was just a number, but I understand also the possible implications as well. I want to thank you once again for serving our Army, and thank you very much for this opportunity tonight.
Good evening. My name is Colleen Grotke. I'm a musician. When my husband was stationed here, we arrived in 1992. The very first phone call I made was to the music director of the local orchestra. Do you need any violinists? Yes, he did. So I arrived that first Tuesday night. My stand partner was an active duty soldier who worked at the technical escort unit, predominantly in the brass and the percussion sections. There's an awful lot of active duty soldiers, and I don't think that's too surprising. But I also found civilian employees, defense contractors, also like myself, are members of the orchestra. I don't think it's an accident that the Susquehanna Symphony Orchestra, of all volunteer community orchestra, is one of the best ones in the United States. Because right here it's located next to very creative, very intelligent people who, I think, became that way because they were musicians. I just wanted to put another face to the talk about the mission. And the mission also is to create a community that has the ability to recruit and retain an excellent workforce. You do that by having a strong cultural arts program. And I don't think you can have a strong cultural arts program like you do here in Aberdeen without Aberdeen Proving Ground. Thank you.
My name is Nancy Post. I'm a contractor. I've been working at APG for the last 4 years. I'm from New Jersey. I'm here because I know the impacts on communities when jobs are lost, and we lost a lot of jobs in New Jersey. And I wanted to sleep again, thinking that relocating my life and selling my beautiful home, I would relocate here. Since the government was investing billions of dollars, I'd have a secure job. Well, it's been anything but secure over these last 4 years. We have endured sequestration, contracts being reduced to very short turnover, which is really hurting the mission, the taxpayer, the warfighter, the employees. We've endured salary cuts, loss of vacation time, loss of quality of life. So I feel like I've been through the ringer already. And in my worst nightmares, I did not know or imagine that I'd be standing here again to face this. So I apologize, but it's been rough. Real people are involved. You've heard economic numbers. Well, it hits our lives bottom, you know, our financial stability. You wonder if the Army is not the place to be, because it's just, you can't just keep churning people's lives like this and expect business as usual. We do the best we can, but there's just so much churn you can take. And working with my colleagues, I'm a software engineer, you don't build this expertise overnight, and you're not gonna get, and I'm not putting down young people or college graduates, but it takes years to develop the work ethic and the endurance of surviving the workplace, and just knowing old technology and moving on to new technology. And us older workers are capable of moving on to new technology, whether we're in the commercial world or the government. So just to let you know, real people are involved. They're involved in all the places you're gonna have to make cuts, but we've already felt pain here within the last 4 years, and I can't believe the number of my colleagues that commute to New Jersey. So hardship has been ours already. And the other thing I'd like to say, as a taxpayer, I just scratch my head. You know, I work so hard to stay within my means, but the billions of dollars and the parking lots that have been put into place, the buildings that have been thrown up, not just at APG, but if you look at all the large contractor buildings, it's going to be like a ghost town. We're really talking 1/4 of the workforce. When you get all said and done with it, that is devastating. So instead of, after all of our tax dollars being invested here, let's be smart and keep the people, let's not take the wind out of our sails before we even get going. You know, those of us that have relocated, but with all the alternative energy, you know, let's partner. Let's share the costs with other organizations and bring them in, not take things out, because the investment has been made here. You know, alternative energy, the money we could be saving by being smart. You know, there were just $4 million paid to a couple who put up a website to point people, to enlist people over here. That $4 million could have kept a lot of our jobs. So, you know, there's a lot to be said, but let me leave it at that. And I hope and pray the right thing happens and that the numbers are correct, because my understanding is the cost of relocating us here and closing Fort Monmouth ended up being double what Congress voted on. And that's a huge waste of taxpayer dollars, and thousands of lives were affected by that decision. And it cost a lot more. So I hope the numbers are correct. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Niedebitz, and I came to Harford County in 1971 to attend the U.S. Army Ordnance Center and School, and spent time, my 3 years here in the military, not knowing what the future was going to hold. I was fortunate and privileged to then be able to work for the Ballistic Research Laboratory, and then followed on with the Army Research Laboratory, and retired after 39 years doing that. So I'm speaking to the mission part tonight, and there was a mission during the Second World War, and one of those missions was to compute firing tables to provide to our artillerymen. In order to compute the firing tables in a timely manner, it couldn't be done with the Merchant calculators that they were using. So a joint program between the University of Pennsylvania and the Ballistic Research Laboratory created the first electronic digital computer ever made. It's called the ENIAC. You can see where the computer industry has come to, right? We would have never envisioned that. But the point is that the mission that's here at the Proving Ground is high-tech. The ENIAC was high-tech in 1945, 1946. So here we are today. Fast forward to today. In 1996, the Department of Defense created the High Performance Computing Modernization Program, recognizing that there was this need to provide the tools for the systems of the future. We heard quite a bit today about the technology and the technology base that's here and the research that goes on here. One of the tools that's needed for that research is what's called high performance computing. In 1996, with the Army Research Lab, there was a Department of Defense High Performance Computing Center established here at Aberdeen Proving Grounds and sits here to this day. So from 1996 to today and into the future, we have here one of the most powerful computers in the Department of Defense and one of the most powerful computers in the world, typically ranked in the top 10% of the most powerful computers. A computer, together with the people and the people who are here, are what we need for the future. So the tools that are here, the people that are here, are going to continue to work that mission and provide our warfighter with the best tools, the best technology to go forward with. So I just wanted to provide that as a data point so you know one of those things that's here. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Boardman. I'm a resident of Joppa. And I'm a member of the Democratic Central Committee in Harford County, and I'm here just to listen and learn, and I've been listening and learning a lot. And I want to thank you for holding this forum, and I do appreciate your comments about transparency. I do think that's very important, and I know in my past experience with the Army, there's been a lot of that. So I don't envy your job because, you know, as we've heard, there are many people who, you know, we are talking about real people, and there are a lot of people who are going to be impacted. But my question actually is about numbers, just so that I can understand what's going on a little bit better. Please contribute your answer to that, because I have more questions than a comment. My question is, well, you mentioned 3,200 civilian employees, and that's out of a pool of how many?
And we looked at the installations. We looked at what would be 60% of the soldiers and 15% of the civilians. So as we go from 570 potentially all the way down to 420, those numbers were doubled. So with the large proportion of civilians that are here, so 3272 is roughly 30% of what the civilian population here is Aberdeen Proving Ground.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question is sort of, you have like about 90 different tenants or associated agencies that are on the installation, and my question had to do with, were there some of them that may be leaving anyway, or who may be, absorbing maybe a larger impact from this than others? If you could just comment on, or how would these cuts be distributed evenly through these agencies? What light can you shed on that for us?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And sir, no, they will not be like proportional. There will not be like, okay, there's these 90 units. Each one of you has to give a certain amount. Of course, we don't even know at this point what the losses here at Aberdeen Proving Ground are going to be. 3272 for the civilians and 1,000 for the soldiers was just what we did the analysis on to get the greatest range so we could present that to the senior leaders and say, here's what the impacts would be if you were to do this number at this installation or that installation. So when we did the reorganization, for example, in 2013, where most of the installations across the United States lost soldiers, Aberdeen actually had a little bit of a bump up, not a lot, about a company-sized element, plus or minus. So at this point, we just don't know, and the analysis that we will be doing will happen when we're done with these listening sessions, so we can take all of this information back and not just rush headlong into anything.
Well, I just want to thank you for your effort, and I know you have some difficult choices to make, and I hope you can minimize the impact as best you can.
Thank you, sir. You do too.
Gentlemen, I had no intentions of coming up and talking to all of you tonight until the lovely lady from the Route 40 Business Association came up, and I thought I'd put a face with one of those Route 40 businesses. My name is Teresa Ray, and I am, as well as my husband, Dord Ray, the owners of your newest eatery, the Lunchbox Deli and Treats, that's located in the Exchange. I was, and my husband and I, one of those Route 40 businesses. We were located in Havre de Grace across from Bully Rock for 4 years. In those 4 years, we had determined that 80% of our clientele was Aberdeen Proving Ground. That 80% was not enough to sustain us on Route 40. Word got out, thankfully, to Aberdeen Proving Ground that we were loved so much by your base. And they came to us and asked us if we would be interested in a solicitation. We, of course, jumped at the chance. We've been there since the end of October and are very thrilled to be there, but came here tonight concerned that a reduction in your base would hurt the little guy. And I think there's so much discussion on the corporate side and the science, technology, that the tiniest of businesses get forgotten. But we support all of you and look forward to being supported as well and servicing you. So I just, when you go back and make that discussion, that you remember the tiny guy too. So thank you.
As a part of Army Material Command, I talk to my boss about 3 things. Once a week, I talk to my 4-star boss, the Commanding General, General Dennis By, at Army Material Command, about 3 things. One of those things has to do with the impact of sequestration. The other has to do with what this installation is doing to combat SHARP, sexual harassment and sexual assault. And then the other one has to do with what this community and what our installations are doing for small businesses. And so I just wanted to let you know that small businesses matter, and small businesses matter to the leadership of our Army, again, from the Secretary on down. And so again, I appreciate you stepping forward, but I wanted to make sure that you left here tonight knowing that we get it. We understand the value of small businesses to this great nation, and that we're doing everything we can to make sure that, as I talked about votes counting earlier, that small businesses are also represented and that they get an opportunity to vote. So thank you, Mayor.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dana Chapman, and I'm a CCOM employee. I want to kind of put a voice to the faces of the many young or relatively young government workers that we have. I started my career as an intern, and then I moved to New Jersey, Fort Monmouth, and I was also a part of the BRAC process. Myself, along with several others, chose the Army as a career. We've gone through the processes of BRAC, we've seen how the Army works, and we're finally at a point where we understand what CCOM does, how CCOM plays a part in everything, not just the Army, but the Navy, Air Force, Marines, the communications pieces that you can't see. Without those pieces, there is no Army. There's no Army if you can't talk to each other. So I just want you to remember that there are those of us who are young and finally get it, and we want the chance to continue our career to help the military as a whole. So that's just the piece that I wanted to share, the young worker that's out there.
Good evening. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming out. Thank you for taking the time to come out and talk to everyone and stay here so late. My name is Tim Mitchell. I'm an engineering technician at Aberdeen Proving Ground. I'm a former soldier in different ways. I was a National Guard, active duty. Now I'm an engineering technician. As we listen to all these stories tonight and the facts and figures, I was sitting out here a little bit ago and I imagined Uncle Sam standing up here looking at me and saying, Tim, of what value is APG to me? Of what value is APG to the soldiers? And I stumbled for the words and then the images came over. So if Uncle Sam were standing here and asking me those questions, I would show him the image, actually two images. The first image would be of mangled bodies and mangled vehicles over in theaters of operation, like those we saw in 2003, 2004, 2005 maybe. Hundreds of bodies, if not thousands of bodies, mangled bodies and vehicles as a result of IEDs and things of that nature. The second image I would show, it would be the image of an up-armored Humvee that survived those explosions and the soldiers returning to the fight, the vehicles that may have damage but were not completely taken out. And I would say, sir, that is the value of APG. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tony Lucuzzo, and I just want to thank you for your service as well. Up to four years ago, I retired, and my last job was SES within the CERDEC for I2WD. But I want to take a different perspective, which we normally sometimes don't have sight into. 2009, I was out, and as usual, you see military, you see young captains, Captain Gonzalez and his NCO, were at a recruiting booth, ROTC, one of our trips. And I did approach them and thank them, as I normally do, the military. And we started into a little conversation, and I found out that he had just returned from the box. And so, curious, I asked him what he thought of several of the systems, and he looked at me, and he says, well, how do you know those systems? And I told him, I says, you know, our organization, Fort Monmouth, and now APG, were the developers of that. And the next thing he did is extended his arm and said, thank you for saving our lives. So that's what APG has. That's the technical substance which doesn't get measured in how many young men and women we bring home safely. So that's what I want to at least shed some light into, because that is never seen or accounted for. Thank you.
My name is Andrew. I work at ATC. Basically, my question to the government is, are you guys ready to expect less? Because as of right now, we just moved another contract. We're 3 spots short, and we've been operating at that for months leading up to this point. Every time cuts come around, what does the government want? They want more reports. They want more things showing figures and facts. We're sitting here drumming that out each and every day. We're stretched thin already. All the things they want done, everything they want done up to a certain specification, we got to find a point where they can say no. We live in a culture of fear where our management refuses to say no. They can't say, look, my workforce is working at maximum occupancy. We're short people, and you want everything under the sun. We have over 1,300 vehicles in our fleet, pieces of equipment we do maintenance for. We have over 6,000 items, and most of what we're working with for a system is, luckily, a couple of us in the section have enough Excel knowledge. We don't even have an actual system to manage all this equipment and everything. We're working on our own Excel knowledge to use formulas and everything we can to actually get things done within that 40-hour week. So it becomes the question, what is the Army and what is the government going to accept as less? Because they cannot hold everything to this standard when you have this much workforce. And my other question is, do you guys know, and I know everything's speculative right now, how things are going to affect the government versus the contract side of the workforce?
I didn't understand the second part of your question. How's it going to impact the government?
With the cuts, is there any way we know, like civilian versus contractor, how things would come down?
It has to do with government employees, and it has to do with soldiers. The one thing that I will tell you is we talk about the industrial base, and we talk about it it's kind of a two-pronged. We talk about the organic industrial base. When you pull down the curtain of that organic industrial base, standing there is our contracted employees. I mean, and so I know that our government, and I think if you ask any leader who's sitting out here who has the honor and privilege of commanding, they'll tell you, we can't do anything as a service without the combined team, the energy, the inspiration, and the think of both the uniformed or dedicated professionals who are our civilian workforce and the contractors. And so although the discussion here tonight is not about cutting contractors, it's aimed at discussing potential losses in the area of uniformed military and our Department of the Army civilians. We recognize fully there's nothing that can be done without that other piece of our industrial base, which is our contracted workforce. That adds to the competitive advantage that this great nation has over others because of that linkage and that nested and that teaming that happens between industry and the government. And so I'll pause right there and I'll let him address if he has any comments.
And thank you, sir. As I showed on the one slide, $95 billion over 10 years, I think what we can all expect is that everything is going to be impacted one way or another. The Army National Guard is going to be impacted, the USAR is going to be impacted, the Army civilians are going to be impacted, and the contractors will as well. I don't think that we have any real indication on how much. It will depend, of course, on what the money is, and it's going to depend on what the priority is for whatever program it is that they're working on. I mean, for the IT community, for some of the installations, they will always rely on their contractor support, because that's where that knowledge comes from. The soldiers just sort of rotate in and out. As far as your workload, I'm sorry, I don't think I can address that. I think maybe you probably have to talk to your supervisor, who would have to talk to their government representative and the contracting officer, and that probably sounds like an interesting meeting that it would be nice to have a donut and a cup of coffee to see what happens when it's all over.
My name is Cindy Smith. I'm an environmental engineer at Aberdeen Proving Ground. I've been there for over 33 years. I simply come here to represent myself and my family. I live in nearby Cecil County, and I would like to speak out for the environment. My concern is I feel that there have been so many wonderful expressions of the socioeconomic impacts. We all know they're going to be extremely significant to our region. I don't think there's any question about that. But I just feel that I need to express my concern with the environment. I've seen firsthand the effects of past historical activities on the environment. I've been cleaning it up for over 33 years. And I applaud the Army because we have spent so many millions of dollars just at Aberdeen Proving Ground. We've made tremendous efforts across the country in correcting what was mistakes of the past. And I don't want to see more mistakes in the future. My concern is that if we have significant loss through this forced restructuring, my concern is not only to the staff of the garrison, but the tenants as well that support us. We have many organizations on the installation. We have so much institutional knowledge, where we have labs that support us, that help us with our drinking water programs, that help us with so many of our compliance programs that help not only protect the environment, but protect the health and safety of all those that work here, as well as the local communities. So what I would ask you gentlemen is to continue to be transparent, to continue to stay involved with the public, communicate with us, and consider the environmental impacts of this. I know you need to do a programmatic environmental assessment, I understand that, but without knowing how that forced restructure is going to happen and the actual jobs that are going to be impacted, the institutional knowledge that will be lost, the resources that we have at APG, what resources will be lost to us to support the environmental efforts here. I really don't feel that we can have a true analysis of what's going to happen to the impact, especially if we are thousands of job losses. So I would just ask that you continue to keep this transparency and truly consider the impacts to the environment. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jill McClune, and I'm the president of the Army Alliance. First, I thank you all for coming here tonight. It was very important for our community to come out, particularly on a snow night, to really demonstrate how important APG was to us and how important it is not just to us as citizens of this community, but citizens of this nation. And I think we've talked about, and I think we've said a number of times, one of the wonderful things about Aberdeen Proving Ground is we don't just have soldiers in uniform, but we have soldiers out of uniform, and that's what makes us so unique. I wanted to highlight to you a couple of things that have also happened today, and I thank Colonel Kusselman and the time that you guys have spent with us today. We've had a number of community leaders have had the opportunity to spend a little bit more time with them and go into more detail about a number of issues. I wanted at least to make you aware of a couple key points that we made that didn't really come out in some of the comments already made. The first is, as has been stated, this was a kind of a raw number deal. If you had 1,000 troops, you were going to be in this installation assessment. We have highlighted, however, that we've got a pretty unique set of military personnel on post, most of which, more than half of it, is assigned to the 20th Suburni Command, a very critical national resource that we really don't believe that anybody would ever eliminate. And most of the rest of the military are scattered throughout other organizations. So really, really kind of difficult for the Army to figure out how you actually delete 1,000 uniformed personnel from our installation. So we highlighted that issue. Another issue we highlighted and is in the we'll get into the record, is we really highlighted the R&D mission, and we really focused on and re-emphasized a lot of what a number of you said about there's some very unique skill sets that just can't be learned, and the combination of capabilities and experience that people have on post. Once those people leave this area and find new jobs, it'll be very difficult for us to recreate and bring those capabilities back. So we highlighted that issue. Another issue I wanted to point out that we highlighted, and I really appreciated the comments from the last speaker because they kind of resonate with that. We talked about sort of the amazing environmental stewardship that has gone on post, to our bald eagles, to some of the awards that we've won, and we're also one of the largest environmental restoration facilities in the country under the Army. And so we kind of wanted to highlight that while the SPIA talks to the fact that they will ensure that any installation impacted would maintain regulatory standards, we feel we are well above regulatory standards, and any loss of such significant staff would probably lower the positive benefits of the environmental factors we actually have. And sort of that plus and minus equation really did not get taken into account. So those were three other issues that we brought up this afternoon and essentially kind of put into the record. I also wanted to highlight, as we kind of close out, I have two comments that I need to read into the record, but if you've had comments today and you read it, if you hand it to me, we will make sure it gets into the record. As we understand it, you're going to build binders for each of the installations, and so we will make sure that that gets added to the binder. I also will say that if it's not inappropriate, but if you send your comments, if you can't give us tonight, if you would send your comments by tomorrow to the CSSC@harfordcountymd.gov, we will also combine that into our pieces, into the set of documents that we'll be providing to the Colonel for the record. It's cssc@harfordcountymd.gov. And a number of you have handed your comments, and a number of them have been personally handed to me. If you haven't found a staff person to hand them to, please see me at the end and I will be glad to take that. Yes?
That's a good question.
So we will definitely make sure those slides get posted, and probably the garrison can post them, and we'll also post them on the Army Alliance and CSC website.
We can
so that
push
you
the
have them.
slides.
First, from Delegate Susan McComas, who was not able to make it here. She's one of our local elected officials. Please reconsider the proposed reduction of over 4,300 jobs at Aberdeen Proving Ground. When Harford County learned of the Army's plan to expand APG several years ago, we invested much time and energy and expense to be ready for the influx of families. We made substantial investments in our infrastructure so these families would have schools, houses, and roads that they need to feel at home when they'd arrived. Reducing APG employment in Harford County would be counterproductive, not only to the significant investments of Harford County, but also to the investments of time, energy, and expense of those families who have made the transition to Harford County. It seems surprising and hurtful that some of these families might have to undergo more upheaval so soon after they've relocated. Please also know that residents of Harford County are extremely proud of what APG has accomplished in the past and wholeheartedly supports its broad and diverse mission to become a successful research, development, testing, and evaluation center of excellence. Sincerely, Susan K. McComas. I also then have a statement from Delegate Mary Ann Lisanti. And this one I have to take my glasses off for. A little hard to read on the phone. As a state delegate representing Harford County, I'm writing to express my deep concern over SPEA recommendations that may result in downsizing the diverse workforce at Aberdeen Proving Ground. Aberdeen Proving Ground is unique among U.S. Army installations as it was created in partnership with the citizens of Harford County for the purpose of creating a world-class headquarters for many aspects of our national defense. Nearly 100 years ago, Harford County residents, like my grandparents, sacrificed their fertile farmlands for pennies on the dollar to provide the necessary land for the APG we see today. APG's partnership with the community has withstood many challenges and adapted to the changing needs of Americans' defense missions. Today, APG remains the center of innovation for our warfighter and the cornerstone of our community. The mere suggestion that downsizing APG's workforce would somehow benefit our national defense is absurd and would certainly harm our community, our state, and moreover, America's ability to remain on guard against global threats. The work conducted at APG is not replaceable at an alternative location that's vital to our national security. Aberdeen Proving Ground is strategically located in the Northeast Corridor between Baltimore and Philadelphia, just a 90-minute drive from Washington, D.C., therefore must remain strong. In times of war and national crisis, APG has been used as command headquarters. On September 11, 2001, APG was immediately selected to accommodate the Joint Chiefs and key leaders as they were evacuated from the Pentagon. The ability of APG to serve within minutes as an emergency command center for our U.S. Armed Forces is a place worthy of protection. Outside its strategic location, APG is one of the most diversified military installations in the United States inventory, thus requires special consideration. The APG tenants conduct vital work in research, development, testing, and evaluation, all in support of our warfighters. The potential loss of 4,300 jobs at APG would have a significant impact on our nation's readiness. In the civilian sector, APG is the third largest employer in the state of Maryland. The highly trained and specialized workforce is a strong economic engine for the Mid-Atlantic region. In recent years, the Army made a significant investment in APG in personnel infrastructure. Harford County government and the state of Maryland also invested in the growth of the APG to ensure success as a leader in research, development, test, and evaluation of Army materiel, including the training and protection of military personnel and assets. As a result of local, state, and federal teamwork, APG has successfully grown its technology mission to further support the Army, the Department of Defense, and our community. On behalf of the civilian workforce, local businesses, and dedicated military servicemen and women, I strongly urge the rejection of the SPEA force reductions for Aberdeen Proving Ground. I remain committed to the defense of our nation through the strength of APG. Mary Ann Lisanti, State Delegate. And finally, as the President of the Army Alliance, we thank you very much for the time that you've taken in our community today. It's very much appreciated. And as we've stated earlier, if there are any more questions that we can ask, any more information that you need so the Army can make a very informed decision about the impact to APG, we're here to be that conduit for communication. And while we may not look forward to the result, we appreciate the hard work that you're going to have to go through. And maybe in closing, you could remind us of the next steps that in the process and what you're going to do with the information that we've provided you today.
I mentioned earlier that this is 13 of 30. We'll finish the last one on 26 or 27 March. The installation's still trying to finalize its final date. From there, we have something that we call the Total Army Analysis, TAA, and that's how we shape our force to see how we're going to move forward. So we'll be doing that in the latter part of March once the listening sessions are over, and then into April. And from there, we'll have an iterative process where we go up and we see the Chief of Staff of the Army and the Secretary of the Army, and we'll have some General Officer Steering Committee meetings that will lead up to that. And that's how we'll get to that decision sometime in late spring or early June. Is there anything for you?
Sir, any closing remarks?
You have anything you want to say?
Just wanted to, first of all, thank the entire team effort that it took to pull this together. It's important that you represent the community. There were two purposes, I think, of us all being here today. One was to give the Army the opportunity to detail the process that is going to be used to determine the force reduction, and then secondly, to give the community the opportunity to express what they feel and how they feel about the relevance of APG and how it impacts everyone in this room. I'll tell you from personal experience, I've been here for about 2.5 years as a garrison commander. I have a previous experience as a garrison commander in Alaska where I also served on an installation that benefited from the BRAC process. The installation and the community grew, similarly to APG. Part of the reason of that success is because of communities like this one here. The community got involved during the entire process. Not that I'm trying to relate this force reduction to BRAC, but the circumstances are similar. My point being, it's going to be important that we all continue to participate in the process and let the Army, our DOD, and our national leaders know how we feel about this community and the impact that APG has on the greater force structure and the defense of this nation. So stay engaged and more to follow. Sir?
Well, the one thing I wanted to do in closing is thank our Department of the Army team for being here tonight.
It's our pleasure.
And I wanted to ask you all for a round of applause for our Army team. The second thing I wanted to do is thank you all, to thank you for your patience, to thank you for your questions, for the passion with which you are asking those questions, and most importantly, for the dignity and respect that I've witnessed here tonight. Everybody here heard a lot of numbers. There have been a lot of numbers, there have been a lot of percentages, not thrown around, but succinctly stated on behalf of this great community and this installation. But the thing that I'm asking the good colonel here, as he goes back to the Army to tell our story, is to talk about the people, to talk about the impact on the youth, to talk about the fact that, and make sure you relay, as it's been properly relayed here, the fact that there are things that happen here on Aberdeen Proving Ground on behalf of the nation, whether you're talking about the work that happens at the Cape Ray, or some of the other great work that happened here, that happened with the Cape Ray on behalf of demilling chemical weapons in Syria. There are things that happen here that cannot be done anywhere else. And so I think that you all have been telling that story. And as I said in the first couple of minutes that I started talking, is make sure that this is not the end of telling that story. Make sure that you treat this as the beginning of continuing to tell the story here. And then we'll let the Army do the work that has to be done. But that will be an informed decision, informed by the people of this great community.
And so I thank you all very much for everything tonight, for those who took the opportunity to set this up, and for once again putting this great community, represented by many cities and several counties, on parade and on display, representing this great nation. Thank you all very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished visitors, thank you for your attendance here tonight. Please continue to follow this story as information becomes available. APG will promote full transparency and publish the information on teamapg.com, as well as our Facebook page, facebook.com/APGMD. Thank you, drive safe, Army Strong.